It's evident that the Clippers need to keep their main players. The question is, will they keep their main players? And we also have to ask, will they keep their main players and keep the bench players as well? Because they need all of them, of course. Everybody on this team that was there this past season needs to be back next year in order for them to be at their ultimate peak, unless they could find a way to replace anybody on the team with some a player that's actually better, of course. Now, also, we're going to talk about today about, is it okay for Patrick Beverley to come back specifically? Because I know there's been a lot of people, especially in the media and just, random fans, in the past saying that Patrick Beverley is an interchangeable player, or he's a good player, but we can do without him. And I know a lot of people were speaking at one time, trade him to get Rondo. So when we analyze that, it's really hard to say, but we'll jump into that topic in a few minutes. Let's get back to, will the Clippers keep their main players, their core players? So when I say, will the Clippers keep their main players, of course, we're talking about Kawhi, PG, Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, players like that. And to me, it's imperative you keep those players. It's imperative that you keep those players. And it's imperative if you let go of anybody on the Clippers, which I hope they keep the same exact team next year, which I've stated. But if you do let somebody go on the Clippers, as far as their bench players and the secondary players, however you want to call them, you better have somebody to match their energy and how they play, or better. Like if you get rid of Patrick Beverley, or let's give another example. If you get rid of Terrence Mann, a lot of people may look at Terrence Mann as not one of their most valuable pieces, who, people who may not look at the Clippers play or have watched them during the season and in the playoffs. But I tell you, if you watch Terrence Mann in that Utah series and going forward, his defense, how he played, his edge, his fearlessness and his willingness to take big shots and try to help the team out on the defensive end as well, makes him a very valuable piece. So you have to find a way to replace a player like that with the same mentality, same energy, same type of player. Like if they traded, hypothetically, which is not, I don't think it's going to happen, if they traded Terrence Mann for, I think his name is Tyrese Maxey on the Philadelphia 76ers, they're the same player. Terrence Mann and Tyrese Maxey are the same player. They play with the same intensity. They play with the same edge. They both have the same type of look when they're out there on the court, sometimes like a deer in headlights, but they don't play that way. They play with fearlessness. They play with the edge. They go to the basket. They score. They're not afraid to take big threes. They are guys that are trying to prove themselves. And I'm not saying by any means, trade Terrence Mann for Tyrese Maxey, because I like Terrence Mann. I think the Clippers need to keep him because they have a chemistry with him, a bond with him. He played good. He showed he played good in the playoffs. He played good, and, he stepped up a little bit when Kawhi went down as well. So, you want to keep players like that, and players like that are just as valuable as the top players, because when you look at, let's just say this, he's not as valuable as a Kawhi Leonard or a Paul George. But what I'm saying is, he brings value to the team if they're not there to play. When Kawhi went down, Terrence Mann was a valuable piece, because we saw what he did in that Utah game where Utah was up by like 25 and Terrence Mann goes off for like 39 points in that game. And I've said before, if it wasn't for Terrence Mann, they probably would have lost that series, because that was game 6 and it would have went back to game 7 in Utah. And I don't think the Clippers would have survived that one without Kawhi Leonard. I just don't see it. So big shout out to him for what he did and how he played and how he showed, that he's a valuable piece of the Clippers. Of course, not more valuable than Kawhi or PG, but like I said, he does have value, and he has even more value if one of them go down because he has the confidence to play at that level. So my thing is, I really personally hope the Clippers keep their main players and all the other players as well, because everybody plays a valuable role and everybody showed that this season specifically. I don't know exactly how much playing time, maybe a Boogie Cousins would get if they brought him back, because I think Serge Ibaka will be back next year. So it'd be kind of hard to get Boogie minutes, stuff like that. But to me, they have to find a way to bring back their main players, because it starts with them. And if you can add pieces to what they already have, then you're good, because their main players, their main core players are good enough to win a championship. We already know that now. I mean, we know that their main core is good enough to win. If they keep Reggie Jackson with Kawhi and PG, they're going to be a dangerous team. They're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. No doubt about it. It's no other way of looking at it. It's no other way to try to speak on it. That's just the way it is. They're just going to be a valuable piece. So, I mean, you have to look at it from that perspective. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the other topic I want to speak on as far as Patrick Beverley. Patrick Beverley wants an extension, with the Clippers. He definitely wants to be a Clipper a long time. I can definitely, sense that. If he wants an extension, he definitely wants to be a Clipper a long time. And, this year, I think he made $13.33 million just for his salary this year. And he was averaging 7.5 points a game. I think he was shooting like 42% from the field. He shot a career, I'm not sure. I think might be a career high, or it's up there for three for him anyway, at 39%. Almost 40%. I think it was like 39.7 to be exact. And he averaged like 3 rebounds and a couple of assists. And we all know, he's pretty good on, he's formidable. Even if you don't like Patrick Beverley, you could say he's formidable on defense. I'll say this personally. I think the Clippers need to re-sign Patrick Beverley. And a lot of people may not agree with me because, Patrick Beverley, he can't score like that. He's not the traditional point guard. But to me, if you look at these playoffs that just passed, Patrick Beverley was more valuable than Rajon Rondo. The Clippers went out and got Rondo to add to the nucleus of what they had to be a championship team. How many games did you see Rondo play in the playoffs? He didn't play that many, especially going forward in the playoffs. It was more Patrick Beverley. And when Patrick Beverley was in the game, he made more of an impact to me, because I'll be honest with you, what Patrick Beverley did to Devin Booker those few games and bothered him, that's all they needed to get over the top. If they had Kawhi Leonard, it's no doubt they would have won that series, because they had somebody to put on Devin Booker who neutralized him. Because what Patrick Beverley does best, of course, he gets into players' heads. And when he got into Devin Booker's head, Devin Booker was never the same that whole series, just about. I mean, he pretty much had him on lockdown. So, of course, if the Clippers had Kawhi Leonard, it's no doubt they'd be in the finals. But this is my point. You look at this, and a lot of people who don't like Patrick Beverley would say, don't re-sign him, let him go. He's not a traditional point guard. I understand that. But at the same time, he brings value to the team. Just like I said earlier, when you have a player that brings value the way he does, you need to keep him. Because if we can put him on, if you're the Clippers organization, like staff, whatever you want to call them, if you look at this guy and be like, hey, we can utilize him in the playoffs exactly how we want to his specialty. Patrick Beverley's specialty is defense. And now that Patrick Beverley is shooting better from the 3-point line than he probably ever has in his career, now you could look at him as a defensive threat along with a knockdown shooter. Now, he's not a great shooter by any means, but he is a knockdown 3-point shooter. That means if you give him 5 threes, he can hit 2 or 3 out of 5. 2 or 3 out of 5 is pretty good. So, I mean, especially for a player his caliber. So my point is his value to the team is very high. I think they should definitely think about re-signing Patrick Beverley because he's definitely one of them pieces that you need in the playoffs. Because what we saw him do to Devin Booker, honestly, if they did win that series, you would have to give the MVP probably to Patrick Beverley. Regardless of what Paul George did, regardless of what anybody else did, I mean, that's all great, all good. But if you don't shut down Devin Booker and CP3 is playing good or decent and DeAndre Ayton is doing what he usually does, you're not going to beat the Suns. The way to beat the Suns is to knock off Devin Booker. Not only he got in his head, he played physical. He damn near broke his man's nose, but he played physical and he played fearless defensively against a top scorer in the league. And that doesn't happen too often. So my point is, I think they should definitely re-sign Patrick Beverley because his value, what he showed in the playoffs, if he can play like that and knock down a 3 here and there on the offensive end, that's a valuable player. That's a championship caliber type player. And, you know, if you can just tone Patrick Beverley down a little bit, you got something going. You know, because he gets a little wild at times, but defensively, I love what he did against Devin Booker. And I guarantee you, if they keep him, they'll see that going forward in the playoffs again and again and again, I think, because I think him just getting inside people's head is enough, getting you out of your game. That's his game, getting inside your head. And he does it very well. I mean, he's almost like a new age Dennis Rodman type player, except a lot smaller, but very effective. So, I mean, my all in all, re-sign Patrick Beverley, keep your players, keep exactly what you have. I mean, if you want to trade maybe a Luke Kennard or somebody like that, you can, but I prefer to even keep him too, because like I said, what they had was a special run. I mean, being down 0-2 in every series and making it into a series and winning all of them besides the last one against the Suns without their best player is overly impressive. But they did it with commitment on the defensive end. All the games they won where they were down 0-2 and they had to go back home being down 0-2, they came back in every series because of their commitment to the defensive end. Whether it was Kawhi Leonard locking down superstar, or whether it was Patrick Beverley getting into another superstar player and locking him down. So it's like, you got to keep this team together. It's really no other way. I mean, that's just how I see it. But, you know, hey, leave any comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think about, you know, the topic and everything and what we talked about. And we'll always engage as we always do. And Cali out.